The Fantastic Four First Steps opens in cinemas on Thursday. It is the 37th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is the second reboot of a Fantastic Four movie that has actually made it to screens. If you count the Corman version, then it is the third rendition of a Fantastic Four movie. It is the first one since Marvel acquired Fox, reverting the rights back to the mothership. And this one stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Eben Moss-Backrack, and Joseph Quinn as your titular characters. Now, this is going to be the last MCU movie for just over a year, actually. The next one that's on the schedule is Spider-Man Brand New Day. It's currently still on the schedule for like July 2026. But Avengers Doomsday has been moved to December. And we don't know how those movies tie in together. And so there's a chance Spider-Man might move as well. Or they may rework some stuff to make it work. Who knows? Anyway, this is the last one for a while. And it is also the beginning of Phase 6, whatever that means, because I've lost track of what any of that means. It's ironic that this movie comes out at the same time as Superman, because both films have an incredibly comic book feel, more so than any other movie of their ilk. They're both rooted in Silver Age comics. Superman as well. I mean, James Gunn is a huge fan of Silver Age comics, and Fantastic Four debuted during the Silver Age of comics, and it has that real comic book episodic feel. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It actually feels incredibly refreshing for a superhero movie to completely embrace its comic book roots. And I had a lot of fun in Fantastic Four because of that. It feels very different from all of the other Marvel movies and MCU movies that we've seen, including things like Thunderbolts and even the Marvels, which kind of leaned a lot more into comic bookishness than the previous movies. Fantastic Four First Steps, with its retrofuturism, being set on Earth 828, with all of the space racy type stuff and the sci-fi elements with Galactus and the Silver Surfer, all of that felt like I was reading a comic book, and I had a lot of fun at this one.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that was one of the first things I said as the credits was rolling, was that this really feels like reading a comic book trade paperback. It doesn't feel like a traditional 3-act structure because a lot happens and a lot of it happens very quickly. Also, like Superman, this movie starts after they've been already the superheroes that they are. We don't see, I mean, we see it in a bit of a sort of like a Showtime exposition dump. For the most part, it really is here is your Fantastic Four. And I love that. I love that these guys were already who they were and who they are. We don't have any of the whiny, whingy bits of the Thing feeling sad for himself. Like, I'm sure it'll come up later, but I never like it when those things happen right at the beginning, because writers think that that's how you get people to like this thing.
Yeah.
But here, they're already the Fantastic Four. We see some quick flashes of them saving other people, addressing the Mole Man, which, can I just say, I love that they brought the Mole Man into this. They could have gone with any cooler villain, no, but they went with Paul Walter Hauser's Mole Man.
I also love that it's Paul Walter Hauser.
I just love Paul Walter Hauser anytime he shows up in anything.
Like, the character actor of character actors playing Mole Man in Fantastic Four is absolutely beautiful. But
Yeah.
You're right. I think starting the movie when they're 4 years into their career and then having to face a threat unlike any they've ever faced. Very similar to the Superman thing, where James Gunn starts it 3 years into his career as Superman. And then there's the one line at the beginning of the movie that kind of sets up the stakes, where he goes, 3 minutes ago, he lost his first ever battle. And that's everything you need to know, right? Because here is the most powerful metahuman who has lost the biggest battle for the first time. And so
Yeah.
therefore it creates a sense of vulnerability. And the Fantastic Four does something very similar because it's their 4-year anniversary as the Fantastic Four, and they are absolutely beloved by the public. There are TV shows and cartoons about them. There are tribute specials on TV, and I think that's a very clever trope to use the tribute special to introduce the characters and their origins. It's done very, very quickly, and then we see the opening credits. Very cool, very smart, very concise, very succinct. I like it. I appreciate it. Just move on. But they're beloved by the public. And then they're faced with this dilemma where it looks like they're betraying that trust.
Yeah.
And I think that creates a very nice in with regards to setting up who these characters are and where they stand with regards to morality and sacrifice and all of these big superhero themes. That's the other thing that I liked about this movie, in that it kind of drilled down and went back to the superhero roots of what do you do when you're faced with this impossible choice. I think a lot of the other Marvel movies have gotten so complex and complicated with world building that oftentimes the simple idea of good versus evil gets lost, which was a lot of fun in Superman. Yet again, it boiled down to a very simple idea of doing what's right, doing what's good versus what's bad. And in this case, Galactus is the big bad. I mean, that's pretty much the story, right? You've seen it in the trailers. They're facing off this unbeatable foe who can devour planets. And the only way they can succumb to him is by sacrificing their own child because he wants their baby. It is truly an impossible choice. And I think it sets up the stakes of the movie very well. I mean, you know what's going to happen. It's the first ever Fantastic Four movie. It's a little predictable how it's going to end, but I think the journey there was very well done. The dynamic between the four of them is great. The stakes are real. There are some truly decent emotional hooks. And I thought they captured the family dynamic very well. For me, it is the best example of what a Fantastic Four movie should be. And it's something that I didn't necessarily get from the other films.
The way the movie plays out is pretty much the way we expect all these superhero movies to play out. So I think that that's fine. It is what it is, right? You're not going to get a Reed Richards where he's doing something completely out of character, which is a Zack Snyder thing. I think that's fine. I don't care that the movie plays out the way it does. For me, what is important is always the ride, because a comic book movie is always going to end with good triumphing over evil, right? But the question is, how does that good get there to win over that battle? And I think what they did here was a fun ride. I also really like the Silver Surfer. I've read some Fantastic Four. I'm not a massive Fantastic Four head, but must it always be Silver Surfer? Does it? It always feels like Silver Surfer is their problem.
I think Silver Surfer is such a critical element of the Galactus showdown that you have to introduce that character if you want to play in this sandbox.
Yeah.
And I think they did a very good job in reintroducing the character and changing enough to make it interesting, like with Johnny Storm's relationship with the Silver Surfer and what Johnny is trying to do to interpret what she's saying in her language and developing her origin and how she fits in with Galactus and all of that stuff. And of course, because this is on Earth 828, you can have a female Silver Surfer. Yes, she exists in the comics as well, but in the comics, in some versions, she is Norrin Rad's wife, who is the male Silver Surfer. And so there are a lot of variants in Marvel that you can mine. And because this one is set in an alternate Earth, I don't even want to call it retrofuturism, because we don't know if this is actually the 60s. It could actually be 2025 in an alternate Earth. They don't give you the date. They just tell you it's Earth 828 and that the Fantastic Four were the first people to go into space.
I think that is important to note here. There will be people who will whinge about the Silver Surfer being female and about, well, the other superheroes, unimportant, because this is Earth 828. This is the Fantastic Four alternate universe, so let's leave it at that.
And they're the only superheroes in this universe, and they're considered Earth's protectors.
Yes, so let's just accept that as the premise and move the fuck on.
Also, I think it's a brilliant way to reintroduce these characters because you've got 36 movies before it, and you don't want to bring in a fresh, young Fantastic Four into the MCU, because that doesn't serve the story. You need a wiser, older Reed Richards. Like,
Yes.
that works when you go into Doomsday and Secret Wars, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And also, you need people who've been doing this for a while. And by the time you reach the end credits, you realize that they will have been doing this for a while. I think it's all very good setup for what comes next.
Yeah. And this feels like one of the few movies in recent times that is excitingly pointing forward. Unlike the Thor post-credit where you suddenly see Hercules and you know we're never going to see that guy again, or the ending of Eternals where Kit Harington may or may not be Black Knight, and we hear Mahershala Ali's voice and we know those two will never happen again. Also, sorry, the Harry Styles situation. Like, those almost felt like joking point forwards, right? Whereas here, there is a very distinct pointing forward to what comes next. And I am actually very excited at that because it didn't feel like a joke. I think, like what you just said, the previous 2 hours of this film had nicely set up what could be moving forward. That is what I'm excited about. I'm excited about Earth 828 and what that means for our MCU. Now it feels like something different. Up to this point, it really was just like, oh, okay lah, you're just going to get whoever's left, team them together, fight Doom, big whoop. But now it's like, oh, there's something that can be quite interesting here.
But I think it's exciting because these are legacy characters. These are the OG Marvel characters, and we're finally getting them in the MCU, right? Because lest we forget, Iron Man, Thor, even Captain America to a certain extent, when everything started, they weren't necessarily the most popular characters. It's because of these movies that they've become so incredibly popular over these last however many years. With the Fantastic Four, this is like Marvel Superman. Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Hulk were the OG Marvel characters.
Big guns, yeah.
They were the big guns, right? And so it's great to finally have them in this form because I think it's been pulled off really, really well. Like, the other thing I really appreciated about this movie, you were talking about how in a traditional Fantastic Four movie, the first 2 acts are kind of spent with them discovering who they are, right? The first act is usually some random scientific discovery before they go off to space and why they're going to space, etc., etc. And then the second act is them discovering who they are and coping with these new powers. And in this movie, they just are. And I like that they didn't spend an inordinate amount of time with Reed going, oh, look, I can stretch. How cool is this?
Yeah.
Look at all the cool things I can do. And it's just a very lived-in world, which means you can just get on with the goddamn story. And you were right earlier when you said, Bahir, everything happens fast. Silver Surfer shows up so early within the first act. And there's big stuff that happens in the second act, right? And you're like, whoa, this would usually be a third act climax.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I think this is the kind of movie you need when you're 37 movies into the MCU. That said, you require no homework. It is very standalone with the exception of that mid-credit scene. And you can go into this and just have a good time. It feels very much like an old-fashioned superhero blockbuster. It's like when Fox released Fantastic Four, you didn't have to know anything. You just know Jessica Alba is in it. Michael Chiklis from The S.H.I.E.L.D. is in it. There's a new guy called Chris Evans who's in it. And there's a random Welsh guy whose name I can't pronounce playing Mr. Fantastic. But, that's all you need to know.
That's exactly it, right? This Fantastic Four feels like essentially all the other Fantastic Fours prior in that there isn't any real links to anything that's come before it. This is just a Fantastic Four movie. It's not an MCU movie, right? You don't need to have seen Thunderbolts or the Captain America before that or whatever was before that or the 12th movie because there was some scene that's going to be pinpointing here. No, this is a Fantastic Four movie. Earth 828, it's standalone. If you don't know who the Fantastic Four are, you will know it in the movie. You don't need to read comic books. There's no precursor. You don't even need to skim the wiki page. You're fine. You're all here. I never saw the last iteration of the Fantastic Four, but I assume that, like the previous one, the focus had always been on Reed Richards and Sue Storm. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. This movie is completely an ensemble. Can I just say, I'm surprised at how little Pedro Pascal we got in this movie.
Yes, it isn't a Pedro Pascal vehicle.
Those two guys are not just the other two guys in Fantastic Four. This is a true Fantastic Four family movie. I love that.
The music is amazing. Michael Giacchino did the score. The production design on this is tremendous. It feels like you're in a Kirby comic. And I think that's what I love the most. Watching the stuff, just appreciating how everything looks and feels. It is tactile. All of that retrofuturism is totally my jam. I really love it. Let me put it this way. The Fantastic Four First Steps isn't breaking any new ground when it comes to superhero cinema. But it is right up there with regards to how good superhero cinema can be when it is pulled off well.
I can see how this won't be warmly received by certain segments of the fans. Because I feel just like Superman, I feel like neither of these movies are big swings. They are not the first Captain America. They are not like, they're not even like Winter Soldier or the first Avengers or even the first Thor, because this is a safe movie delivering what they need to do for the next movies, right? Okay, so sorry, let me start with Superman, because Superman was that, we spoke about it, Superman was that first movie from James Gunn's DCU, so they had to essentially kick it off, I wouldn't say safe, but right down the middle. They have to set a bar that is high enough that everybody will get excited about, but also at the same time, not stupidly high expectations, right? Fantastic Four feels the same way. I think after the last few MCU movies, Fantastic Four is the perfect movie for the MCU because 1, it is standalone, and 2, it is fun, and 3, it is safe. It is completely right down the middle. There is nothing problematic about it, but it also doesn't grasp for the highest fruit.
Yes.
It doesn't try and do too much by stretching itself, right? And by not stretching itself, it plays it completely safe, but it delivers on that safety, and I love that.
I think it delivers on the promise. I think you're right. It is what Marvel needs right now to win people back. And I think the cast that they have assembled are very, very good. And the writers they assembled as well captured the essence of who these characters truly are.
Yeah.
Johnny Storm is Johnny Storm without being a caricature of that character.
But I also love that Johnny Storm isn't a cad.
Yes.
Right? The way Chris Evans played him.
Yes, and that's what I mean by not being a caricature of it, right? Sue Storm and Reed are incredibly true to their comic book counterparts. If you've read the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four, Sue Storm is one part superhero, one part diplomat. Also, if you've read that comic or any Fantastic Four comic, Reed is the cerebral guy who is always in his own head. He knows he's smart and he's always overthinking everything. And I think Pedro Pascal captures that perfectly. And then Ben is the every guy, but in this one as well, he is branded as one of the world's best scientists. He's not just a random dude who happens to be Reed's best friend who they brought along for the ride, you know?
Yeah, like in the previous iterations of Ben's, he's always this like, oh, he's the best fighter pilot around. Okay, that's fine. I like that this version of Ben Grimm isn't, you know how sometimes they almost play him like a fully formed Hulk almost? Like he just loves smashing, which is kind of like what the cartoon does with him.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's an actual guy. He's got feelings, he's got emotions. And I love that this movie never sort of devolves into watching Ben Grimm walking in the rain, feeling all sad with the way he looks and all that shit, right? I like this version of the Fantastic Four. I like these characters of the Fantastic Four. I like that this version of Reed Richards isn't, he knows he's smart, but he isn't cocky about it, which is what that first Fantastic Four almost felt like. He always feels a little like, almost looking down on other people because he's so smart. Whereas with Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards, he knows he can solve the world's problems and he's solving the world's problems.
But he's also suffering because he knows he can't solve all the world's problems.
Yes.
No matter how hard he tries, no matter how smart he is.
Yes.
And I think that is a perfect depiction of who Reed Richards is, at least in my reading of the comics. Or that's the Reed Richards I like. I'm also glad that this is the last movie for a while, because I think people need time to miss the MCU. I know James Gunn, Kevin Feige, they have to toe the line and say superhero fatigue is not a real thing, but I think to audiences it is. I think no matter how good a movie is, even with something like Thunderbolts, for example, I think audiences require convincing to come back to watch one of these movies opening weekend. I think they will eventually watch it when it comes on streaming because they don't have to put too much effort into it, but they need to be excited again. And I think Superman and Fantastic Four are very good entry points back into that excitement because they feel just different enough in its execution to give people something fresh.
I feel like if you have a 10-year-old child, the Fantastic Four is the perfect way to get into the MCU, right?
Agreed.
Because there isn't 36 movies prior to this. You can't jump in at the Marvels. You can't jump in at the Eternals because it's so tightly wound in with the movies before it and the movies after it that it becomes a problem. It becomes homework, right?
This does feel like world building from zero.
Yes, which I appreciate because also it's Earth 828. You know, you can take that mindset when you're sitting down to write this film. And that's what they did, and I appreciate that.
This is pure escapist fare, the kind you got when you first started reading comic books. It was the same with Superman. Pure escapist fare. It's not our world. It's the DC universe. It's not our world. It's Earth 828.
Yeah.
Also, just a really cool tribute to Jack Kirby's birthday because he was born 28th of August, which is nice.
That's beautiful.
We highly recommend Fantastic Four First Steps. If you're one of these people who feels a little jaded by the MCU, we think this is the kind of fun escapist fare that might get you back into it.
Some people will want to know this. 2 post-credit scenes, 1 mid-credit, then the last post-credit is just a fun bit of fun. I think you should sit for both. I'm not going to say one is more important than the other. If you're going to commit to the post-credit thing, why would you walk out after the mid-credit scene?
I think you should just sit, listen to the music, appreciate all the hard work that went into the movie anyway.
Also, can I just ask, is Michael Giacchino Goggler's favorite movie composer?
After John Williams, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Williams is just there. I think putting John Williams number 1 on any music composer list is insulting to John Williams.
Sure.
Because I think he transcends lists.
I agree.
You know?
I agree. Okay, so contemporary music composers. Yeah, Michael Giacchino. I really love Ludwig Göransson as well.
Oh, Ludwig's really good too.
I would put Giacchino and Göransson over Hans Zimmer.
I completely agree with you. Like, I think the problem with Zimmer is that, you know, when a musician's been around a long time, they start getting bored with playing instruments the right way.
Correct.
And they just start making up instruments and making up new notes because they're bored. I feel like Zimmer's music for things like Dune and Dunkirk were great, but they're not music. They're emotional accompaniments to sequences on screen. Whereas I feel like Giacchino stuff, I can listen as an album. I can't hear that Interstellar soundtrack while I'm driving a car. Fuck that. But Giacchino's actually music, and I love that. I love Michael Giacchino. I'm sorry.
No. He's absolutely fantastic, and the score for Fantastic Four is really, really good. I mean, he takes a note from John Williams, right? When you listen to John Williams' Superman score, and it goes, Superman! I mean, this one is very similar with Fantastic Four, and like that's
it's
really,
literally
really cool.
there.
Yeah. So go check out the Fantastic Four First Steps. It opens in cinemas Thursday, July 24th. We don't think you'll be disappointed. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. You know how to reach out. We're on Instagram on GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.